one of the days that, even though it was my first day back, I wanted to just stay in bed this morning. I didn't want to get out of bed. It happens. It happens. But what are you going to do? Roll with the punches. Roll with the punches. Anyway, say good morning to my very good friend from the Meteorological Department of St. Martin, Carshena Gordon. Welcome, my dear. How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Good morning.
Okay, hang on. Let's pick the right. Let's try this again. Now we got the right microphone turned on. There we go. Nice to see you, my friend. How's everything?
Nice to see you too, Dr. Suck. Welcome back to St. Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gone for about 10 days and it felt like an eternity. I love spending time with my family, but I went to my 40th high school reunion.
Wow.
Yeah, talk about scary. Talk about scary. Anyway, so listen, we're now on day 4 of the dreaded season. So far, so good.
Yes.
We have the season starts when? It ends
The,
when?
the season, the Atlantic hurricane season starts on June 1st and
Mhm.
ends on November 30th every single year.
So we have a ways to go.
Yes.
We have a ways to go. I'm going to adjust your microphone a little bit. The mic won't bite. You should be worried about me, but get nice and close to it.
Okay,
Um,
great.
and um, and so we have a ways to go. The predictions once again seem to be for a busy season.
Yes, the prediction is for yet another above normal hurricane season, which will actually make it the 10th consecutive year of active hurricane season being above normal. So imagine for the past decade, we've been having
Above,
above normal
it would se-
activity.
it would seem to me that maybe we have to redefine normal. you
Yes.
know.
So actually, the normal for
Mm,
the season
mhm,
was recently redefined.
mhm,
Based on climatological data,
mhm,
the normal is now taken from the years 1991
mhm.
to 2020. So before, the 30-year average was different numbers, but now a normal season consists of 40 named storms,
Mhm.
7 hurricanes, and at least 3 major hurricanes.
Listen, it only takes one to make it
Yes.
a bad. If there's one big hurricane or one hurricane and it happens to be where you are, it makes it a bad season.
Yes.
That's all it
And
takes.
that is exactly what we consider an active season. Once we just have one single system, tropical cyclone passing near us and or impacting our region or our little island, St. Martin, that is an active season. And we must not be complacent because many people would think, oh, the tropical storm, it is not passing directly over St. Martin, so we are safe. However, even a tropical wave giving us a few hours of intense rainfall can make it active because on St. Martin, we know once rain falls for a certain amount of time and give us a bit of heavy rainfall, we can get flooding. And flooding would also be part of the impact of tropical cyclone. So not necessarily direct impact. A system can be passing out a bit of distance away from St. Martin. We can get high winds, we can get storm surges, we can also get intense rainfall that can cause flooding and flash floodings in St. Martin.
Yeah, and listen, I was, and we are not the only place in the world that has these problems. I was in Miami. Uh, what's today? Today is Wednesday. So I was in Miami on Monday and Tuesday. I flew back yesterday. So I was in Miami Monday. I happened to go out to lunch in Brickell, and there was a torrential downpour that happened while I was sitting in the restaurant having lunch. And when I got there, it was kind of a little overcast, maybe a little bit of a drizzle, but nothing big. And within, you know, 40 minutes, the water in the street came up, shin deep, was almost up to my knees.
Wow.
And they gave me a plastic bag to wear to walk back to the car, and I was drenched. So, those types of tropical downpours can be problematic here, but also in other places. So, wherever you're listening from, please, you have to listen and be smart
Yes,
about.
small islands, places that are along coastlines, that can happen. And you've mentioned that example in Miami, but we had our own little example last year
I
here in St.
remember.
Martin.
I
In the
remember.
month of November, if people remember, we had two consecutive periods of heavy rainfall where they had a total of at least 5 inches of rainfall. And one of them, it was about 2 inches of rain fell within a 6 hour period.
Right.
And because that amount of rain fell, and based on our drainage system, we had major floodings in St. Martin. So it wasn't a tropical storm or anything
Just
like
heavy
that.
rain.
Therefore, we should remember that just one system could be passing away from us, near to us. We do not necessarily need a direct impact.
Mm.
Once conditions are favorable, intense rainfall can cause us
Mm. So
flooding, flash
we
flooding.
we have one thing going for us, because we're the difference between high tide and low tide, here in St. Martin is very very little. You don't even notice the difference between high tide and low tide. And like the further you go north, up the eastern seaboard, right? The best examples, if you go to a marina,
Yes,
in like New England, right, in Maine, you watch all the docks float up and down
yes,
pilings, right, because they have such a big, they have to adjust to the tide. We don't have that problem here, which is helpful. The other thing that I think is helpful too is that when a tropical cyclone hits the mainland, the path of least resistance for the storm surge and maybe even the tidal surge, which we don't really experience a tidal surge, but the storm surge is to go ashore.
yes.
When you're on an island, the path of least resistance, we still have a storm surge, but the path of least resistance is for the water to go around the island. And that is a benefit of where we are, but
We
we,
do experience a bit of storm surge here in
for
St.
sure, for
Martin.
sure.
So if a system is passing close to the island, the water becomes abnormally high and it rushes onshore, and that can cause a lot of coastal flooding.
And as the lower the pressure gets, the higher
Yes,
the water comes up. And
definitely.
that
The lower
that's
the pressure, the stronger the system also.
so let's run through the official forecast.
Yes.
So what can you tell me? What are we expecting?
Just a reminder, a normal season consists of at least 14 named storms,
Hmm.
7 of which can become hurricane, and 3 major hurricanes. And major hurricanes are hurricanes that reach maximum sustained winds of at least 111 miles per hour. And when it becomes higher, we have the different categories of the hurricanes. We have category 1, category 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 5 being the most destructive, which is catastrophic. You would have experienced Irma, which was a catastrophic
Her.
hurricane.
We just say her.
Yes. And that one was very strong, 185 miles per hour, maximum sustained winds. And
Gust
the
way over.
record was 220 miles gusting winds. Wow.
Yeah, I was here in the building during Irma, and it was the only storm I've ever lived through where the pressure was so low that you could feel it in your ears.
Yes, I definitely experienced that. I was on duty, and that was even surprising for me how strong the pressure can impact your physical being.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so
So,
14 named storms, 7
seven
becoming hurricanes,
hurricanes and
3
that's the norm. That's
that's the
the
norm. Okay.
regular average. However, for this year, the
Yeah.
prediction is for at least 13 to 19 named storms.
Okay.
So that is above the 14.
Yep.
6 to 10 hurricanes and 3 to 5 major hurricanes.
Okay.
And there are a few contributing factors that have experts are expecting to generate this kind of situation with the prediction, and it is we're expecting the seas to still remain above normal in temperature, so high sea surface temperatures, and also ENSO neutral conditions
Okay,
to
what does that mean?
continue.
What does ENSO neutral conditions
Okay,
mean for?
so during the ENSO, many many persons would have heard about El Nino and La Nina.
Right.
So El Nino, usually during El Nino years, we have the tropical cyclones season, the hurricane season a bit suppressed, so we don't
In
usually
the
have that
on the
much.
Atlantic side, El
Yes, on the
Nino.
Atlantic side. However, during the La Nina season, it is a bit more active. However, when it is neutral, the ENSO phase, it can go a bit either way. We do not have that much of an active season. However, once the conditions necessary for a tropical cyclone to develop exists, we can have an active season in an ENSO phase. So that is why they're predicting the above normal season. So they're saying the warm sea surface temperature, which is one of the ingredients necessary for the
It's
development
part of
of
the
a tropical
recipe.
storm. Yeah,
And
that is part of the whole cook up.
yeah,
So
and the Caribbean side,
yes, in
the
the
Caribbean side,
Atlantic and Caribbean seaside.
yeah, the Gulf of Mexico, very warm,
Yes.
very warm.
Yeah, so currently the eastern tropical Atlantic, it is not as warm. However, the Caribbean Sea, it's currently very warm. I would now list what are the other ingredients
Sure.
necessary. So we would have warm sea surface temperatures, that is about 27 degrees Celsius or 81 degrees Fahrenheit. We'd have an unstable atmosphere, relatively moist air. We need a moist atmosphere and weak winds in the upper levels.
Okay.
So far, we're having the warm sea surface temperatures. It is not as necessarily warm as it was last year. However, it is still sufficiently warm that it's possible once other conditions are favorable,
Hmm.
we can get development of
Hmm.
a tropical cyclone.
Okay. So next
Yes,
was
so the warm sea surface temperature, the unstable atmosphere, moist air, and the low winds in the upper levels.
so we
So
often
when we
talk about wind shear,
yes,
and
so
that's
that's the
the
wind shear. So wind shear, people would normally hear wind shear, and wind shear is the change in wind direction and speed.
at the upper levels.
Yes, in the vertical in the upper atmosphere. So once the winds are light and mostly calm, that can help the tropical cyclone development. However, once the winds are strong, you can expect it to shear it off, like cut,
Y-
help to break it up in easier terms for persons to understand.
Okay.
So that can break it up. But once it's passing over that warm water, it is easier for it to develop. So that's what we are expecting to see.
What about we often hear folks talk about the Saharan dust.
Yes.
And that really goes to the moist.
Yes, the Saharan dust can also be a contributing factor on how the system develops. When there's Saharan dust present, it can help to suppress the system because the dust is there to inhibit the development of
It
the
dries
storms.
it dries
Yes,
things
it
out.
helps to dry things out. And we would have seen over the past few days, we had an influx of Saharan dust over our area. And although Saharan dust is easier to predict 1 or 2 weeks before it reaches the area, we can take into consideration what the usual situation is during the year
Hmm.
and during the August period or during this time moving into the summer months, we have more intrusion of Saharan dust, more Saharan dust coming over the area. So we can have the Saharan dust to help us suppress the tropical cyclone. But what does that mean? More Saharan dust means the atmosphere is going to be more hot. It's going to be more humid. We can possibly get more intense rainfall, which can still give us flash flooding.
Sure.
And with the warm sea surface temperatures, that also contributes to warm air, which means we can possibly have more heat waves, period. Last year, it was intense.
It was very hot last year.
However, this year, we're not expecting it to be as hot as last year. However, we do know that it's possible for heat waves to start increasing as the season, as we continue into the Caribbean heat season, because we've now transitioned into the Caribbean heat season.
Well, let's hope.
It's going to be very hot.
Hope is not a strategy.
We need to prepare.
Thank you.
That's the best strategy.
Exactly.
Just can't
That's
live
a,
on the hope and a prayer. We also need God helps those who help themselves, so we can help ourselves by
thank you.
being prepared.
And one of the things that you can start to do, just simple stuff, right? You know, the kids are out of school or getting ready to get out of school. So, you got them around, put them to work, have them clean up the garden, clean up the yard, things that can become flying, start to get things ready. If you can prune your trees in your yard, now's a good time to start to do that. Matter of fact, I'm doing that this Saturday. I'm having all
Yeah.
the trees pruned. I'll do it again the end of July because that then puts me in a better position for when the tropical season is in the thick of things.
Yes, because the peak of the hurricane season is around August, late September, so
I always tell
no
people,
time to wait.
I always tell people between August 15th and October 15th is kind of the hot spot for a hot time of the year for us.
Yes. However, although the season ends on November 30th, remember the ingredients I listed? Uh, those conditions can exist outside of the season.
For
So
sure.
once they are there, a tropical cyclone can form.
Before June 1 or after December 1st.
Yes, before, because in the past we've had quite a few tropical systems,
In
that
May.
tropical cyclones that formed in May.
Yeah. So it
So
happens.
yes, that happens.
So the other
Okay.
thing that you can start to think about, and I would encourage our listeners to do this, is start to think about, you know, um, look at your disaster
So
preparedness
plan
plan.
with your
L-
families.
Yeah, and look at your hurricane supply kit from last year. Look and see what's expired, what needs to be replaced, and do that now. You should have a good 2 weeks of supplies on hand as part of your disaster supply kit and plan. And it really means sitting down and having the discussion with your family. The people live under your roof. What are we going to do during a storm? Where are we going to go during a
Yes,
storm?
where is your nearest shelter? Do you know where's your nearest shelter? Luckily, my nearest shelter is the street, right, the street in front of me,
Hmm.
so I can easily go there if something
Yeah.
doesn't
We
seem right.
for us for here for those of us that work at Island 82, we're here during a storm, and this is a concrete box on the second floor with full generator backup. So this is our
A little shelter.
this is our
Okay.
little shelter, and there's two windows. There's this window and the window in my office. They both have shutters, but they both can. The one in my office can be opened. It's a louver window
Okay.
to release
A
pressure.
little bit of pressure.
And the same thing here behind the shutters. I can open these windows just a little bit to let the pressure go through.
So those are things people should consider. Is your shutter working? Are your shutters working? Not just
Yeah.
one shutter. Are your shutters working?
Are they working, or maybe you have
You may need plywood.
you have manual shutters.
Yes.
This is a great opportunity right now if you want to talk about being prepared.
Now is the time to start preparing.
Well, and if you I'm not
If
and
you
not
haven't already,
and not to promote any one particular supplier by any stretch, but you can go to Koiman, right?
yes.
And they sell you can buy they're stainless steel uh, bolts that go into the building, and the stand that sticks out has threads on it.
Oh,
So
okay.
you put those around your window, like maybe two at the top, two at the bottom, two on each side, so six per window, and then you have the plywood cut to fit the window, and you
Okay.
drill the holes in the plywood, right? So now you number how many you have. When it comes time to put them up, you just take the number one, put it over this window, put a washer, and then a hex nut, screw them down, and your shutters are up. If you have to do wood shutters, you can actually go and do those now and store them, right? And have it. And if you don't have metal shutters,
Yes.
if you have metal shutters, make sure they work. You know,
Definitely. I've already checked the mine, ensure that I can crank it up, what needs oiling.
right. The other thing too, I always tell people is, We have some people have the accordion style shutters,
Yes.
and they never close. They only close them during a storm. Open them, close them when there's a storm. Well, take the opportunity now. Make sure that they slide back and forth. Make sure that the bolts that close them, the locks, all work. Make sure that your things are ready, because now you have time. It's important. Do your preparations,
Uh,
and you can go out and go shopping now, and you'll get all the dry goods, get the
yes,
rice, and
definitely.
you get all the stuff that will keep, and have your kit ready along with water. Have lots of bottled water ready for drinking purposes um, during for a storm. And we talk about 2 weeks of supply is
Yes.
probably the right thing.
And Irma would have taught us sometimes you may need even a little bit more.
Exactly.
Many people, it was difficult to source water after the hurricane had passed. And one of the most important things to know is where would you be getting your information from?
Bingo.
Yes, because we have social media and many different ways to source information. But do you know where to get credible information? Because you can download anything from any website. You can go to anybody that has created a Facebook page and say St. Martin,
Doesn't
some
does
sort of
do-
weather.
doesn't mean they know what they're talking about.
Exactly,
What we
because some
what
of that information, when you get it, you may save that and actually miss the real warning or watch
so what we always
alert
what
that is issued.
what we encourage everyone to do, encourage all of our listeners, is we will give you only credible information here at Island
Yes,
92.
I do know you share from our Met department.
Always the meteorological department of say, listen, it's not a warning until the government of St.
St.
Martin
Martin,
says that it's a warning or a watch, right?
yes,
Regardless of what other people may tell you. It is up to the government to make those official pronouncements, and those come generally through the Meteorological Department of St. Martin. And once we receive those official notices, that's when we share things, and we stay on the air 24/7 during a storm and try and talk people through and have people in. As long as we can stay on the air,
yes,
we do.
yes. So,
So
uh,
credible
with that,
information.
I must mention
What's the website?
yes, where to get those
Yeah.
information from. So we do have a website, and it is www.meteosxm.com. That
And
is meteosxm.com. That's our website. We do have a Facebook page, and you can type in the search bar SXM Weather, and
mhm.
you'll see our office logo. You'll see Meteorological Department St. Martin. And we have web a WhatsApp channel. We actually have a WhatsApp channel that many people are subscribed to. They follow this WhatsApp channel, and you would get the latest update on severe weather, special information as we are going through this first week of the Atlantic hurricane season. We're sharing content to educate the public on certain things such as the outlook, the names of the storms we can expect this year, why we name storms,
There's no
because many
Jeffrey, right?
people
There's
like to know that.
there's no Jeffrey this year, right?
Uh,
Just checking, making sure that's
no,
me.
there is no Jeffrey, but
Or-
there's a Jerry.
Oh, good. That's not me.
Okay. So you
Oh,
can go to our Facebook page, and there's a link there to connect to our WhatsApp channel.
perfect. I have it all. We're all
Yes.
we're all linked.
Yes, I listen
And
to the radio, the newspapers, the
eh,
government of St. Martin. They normally share our information also. And I
and
have the names
run
for
through what are the
persons to
names? Let's
familiarize
go.
people with.
What are the
What are
names
the names?
for
The
2025?
2025 list of tropical cyclone are Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dexter, Erin, Fernand, Gabrielle, Humberto, Imelda, Jerry, Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, Olga, Pablo, Rebecca, Sebastian, Tanya, Van, and Wendy.
See, I have my very good friend Rebecca and my very good friend Wendy, and
Okay.
if they come and torment us, they won't be good friends.
Yes.
Sorry, Bex. Sorry,
So
Wen.
this list, the list, this list was used in 2019 because it's a list that keeps rotating. So
Right.
every 6 years, so there's a sixth list, and the names may sound familiar because it was the list used in 2019, and just two of the systems were replaced. As persons may or may not know, you can be educated now if you didn't know. Once a tropical cyclone is deemed deadly or costly, the name is retired, so no one can be frightened anymore when they hear that name.
So in other words, no more Irmas.
Yes, so there will no longer be Irma. No more Irma as a tropical cyclone coming across our
Thank
Atlantic.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Give everybody the website one more time.
Yes. Our website is www.meteosxm.com. Our Facebook page is SXM Weather. You can follow our Facebook page and you'll see there's a link for our WhatsApp channel so you can connect with us via WhatsApp also.
Always a pleasure to have you, Carshena, in the
Thank
studio.
you.
I appreciate it. We have to do it
Yes.
more than once or twice a year.
Yes. And
Promise.
I just would like to remind people that the hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th. Although it is predicted for it to be an above normal season, generating 13 to 19 named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, and 3 to 5 major hurricanes. You may hear that something may be coming towards St. Martin and it deviate and you think that you're in the clear. Remember that a system does not necessarily have to pass over St. Martin or give us a direct hit for us to have an active season. Even hours of intense rainfall can cause us flash flooding. We can have high winds, a lot of gusts that can disrupt activities, outdoor activities, and many other things persons may have in mind. So just be prepared and connect to the Meteorological Department of St. Martin for the information related to tropical cyclones and your daily weather forecasts.
Always a pleasure to have you in the studio, my
And
dear.
thank you for having me here, Dr. Suck.
We do it again.
Yes, had a good time.
Deal. It is 8:30 right here in the Northeast Caribbean. I'm going to hang on. Let me see what I could do here. Let me see if I can get myself back on track. We're a little behind. What else is new? So, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me see if I can make all this work. There we go. We're going to take care of your Amstel Bright entertainment calendar. It's brought to you by our good friends at Amstel Bright, Island 92 and Z 105.1 FM. Stay with us. More Fresh Air in the Morning is on the way right after these messages.